Hey everyone, and welcome to a little bit of woo woo. I'm your host, Jill Thomas. Oh my god, my mic and my camera are both working. Small miracles. Okay, so I can't record anymore on Friday mornings because there's always a Friday afternoon crazy with the Trump administration, and I always like want to come back and say something more on it. And so anyway, I'm doing Friday afternoon now, and so far it's 2 o'clock Pacific. I haven't seen anything crazy. It'll happen like 10 minutes after I post it. Anyway, but I want to talk about last Friday's crazy. So you're going to get like 45 seconds of my opinion here, and then we'll get into the intuitive stuff. Please don't fast forward. I have something to say. I have a point. So last Friday, the Trump administration, I know Donald Trump himself, fired the person in charge of the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. And you guys know I have never been a fan of this jobs report. I have said many times that data is just it's not been good. It's notoriously been lots of revisions every other day, every other month. Well, actually, every month. Sorry, every month for like the last year. It's been huge revisions. So when I heard that he'd fired her, my initial thought was, well, good riddance. Kind of thought it would be nice to have a change in administration. This is just my opinion, right? For entertainment purposes only, you shouldn't listen to me. I'm kind of nobody in this. But this, like I said, a couple minutes of my opinion. But then when I heard why, he said it was because he felt like she was trying to make him look bad. And frankly, if she was going to try and make him look bad, she would put the bad data on the front page and revise it up later rather than putting the good data on the front page and then revise it down after the next couple months. So if she's trying to make him look bad, she's not doing a particularly good job at it. That's just my opinion. I would actually like to see a new administration there because I do feel like this data keeps getting revised. I also feel like it's also way far away from the ADP data, which has problems too, but it has a little bit more real-time data because it's actual payrolls, right? Instead of survey data, which is, I guess they both have some survey data in them. Anyway, if you heard how this data is collected, you would be like, why are we even using this? That's just my opinion. Okay, so intuitively, what I think is going to happen here, first of all, I don't think that I don't think it was about making him look bad. I feel like he's managing to do that on his own without any help, but that's just my opinion. As nobody's special in this, I've never worked for this department, so I don't really know how that data is collected. All I get is what you guys get too. I look on YouTube because I'm curious, right? I do see intuitively what they may end up doing is I feel like they're still trying to decide what to do. The other thing that happened last Friday was that one of the members of the Fed quit just a few months before the end of her term. So now he actually gets the Trump administration gets to choose two upcoming Fed people. And if you look at the Fed itself, half of the members are ones he has picked last time, and half are Biden. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But what I see is they may end up combining departments. So maybe Bureau of Lands, Labor Statistics, and some other department. I don't, can kind of doge the whole thing and get some of these departments put together is what I'm seeing them doing. But I feel like right now they haven't really decided. The damage is done in a lot of ways, though, because people are not going to be trusting this data when it comes out for lots of reasons. And this data is what affects the stock market, it affects bond prices. And personally, I would love to see them just change how they collect it. I don't know about you guys, but I don't answer my phone. I mean, I don't even have a phone because you guys might, have an appointment and then for some reason can't find the Zoom link and then want to call me and ask me about it. That's the only reason I even have fun. And I only have it turned on if I get separated from my husband at the mall, right? When you get a business of your own, you know what I'm talking about. Last 2 days of the month, I get like 30 phone calls from Yelp from the sales rep who has not made quota that month. And so the phone is definitely off during those last 2 days of the month. Like I said, when you start a business of your own, you'll know why. Anyway, so my point. Ask a friend what our tariff situation is right now, and nobody knows. Nobody knows. Right at this moment, I know that about 30 minutes before the 10-year auction, Trump's announced an additional 25% tariff on India, which caused our 10-year treasury to have, I think it was like the worst auction they've ever had. The headline you probably heard in the news was, nobody wants our treasuries. First of all, not true. But that's how the news can get manipulated. And I have a point to this because in addition to after he fired the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS lady, and said that she was messing with the numbers to make him look bad, He also demanded a 300 basis point reduction in interest rates because the economy is really good, and and what you really want to do under a very good economy is to lower interest rates, which actually in theory would cause inflation rather than the other way around. So my point here is, if you start trying to insert logic into this administration, you're going to be driven bananas. And I'm not joking. You're going to go nuts. Why is he doing this? Why is he not doing that? Why is this happening? Don't do that to yourself. We don't know. Intuitively, when I tune in, I try who's really in charge. I'm like, oh, I don't know who's really in charge. I see and I feel three energies. One of them is Donald Trump, who makes decisions sometimes, these toilet tweets, 1 o'clock in the morning. And you can see there, you can always tell when he's written it because the wording is very different than anybody else. It's in all caps. And then there's the other guy. I can't think of the guy's name. There's like two other vibes. One I can picture, but I can't think of his name. It'll come to me later. You guys will write it in the comments, I'm sure. But I do feel like there's like three people kind of in charge here with three different directions. And sometimes when Donald Trump makes a move on his own, the other get caught, the administration gets caught off guard, and they're scrambling to say, well, how do we handle this, or how do we manage this? Right now, what they are trying to manage is what I call Operation Anything But Epstein in the News. And some of the things that they're putting in the news to distract are increasingly becoming weirder and weirder and more, confusing. Let's put it that way. Yeah, that's why I'm saying, don't get too caught up in it. People are always asking, are we going to be sliding into fascism? No, I'm not seeing that. I do see a more or less, maybe a little bit more like less. There will be another president after this administration has passed, and probably quite literally, actually, after this administration changes, and it will slide into a much more normal feeling, something a little bit more normal, akin to what we used to experience. I do feel like it's going to be, and I've said this before, I feels like either a more conservative Democrat or a more liberal Republican. It almost has almost like a Romney McCain kind of Republican, or like Bill Clinton was a little bit more conservative Democrat. That's the vibe I get from the next administration. Not, I do feel like Vance will be the next president, but that's what I feel there. So, and it's not going to slide into fascism. But the question people are seeing things on the news, like the Democrats leaving Texas so they don't get a quorum. I in Oregon, the Republicans left to try and avoid a vote on something, and I can't remember what the issue is. Somebody will put it in the comments. I can't remember what the issue was, but this is nothing new. This tactic is not new. Ultimately, I do think they are going to redistrict in Texas. I think they're just delaying the inevitable. Having said that, I do see them trying to do the same thing in California and New York, and maybe even a couple of other states are going to try the same. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, and this is going to cause a massive conflict, which is going to end up in the Supreme Court, and they're going to have trouble trying to figure out how we can give it to Texas, but not to California. It is going to be a mess. I think that is the right word, mess. But I do ultimately see them doing some redistricting. I know normally these things, and I had to Google this because I didn't know this either. Normally this kind of stuff happens around the census, so every 10 years. So they could have done it in 2020, now they're doing it now. So I don't know. It's interesting. It does feel like an act of spite. Having said that, when people are asking me, is this going to mean that is going to affect the midterms? Yeah, it's going to affect the midterms for sure. I do still see the Democrats winning by a small margin. I do see some more of these sort of tactics of what we're going to call voter suppression. I do feel them. I do see them trying to go after that mail-in ballot business that some states have. I live in a state where you get a ballot in the mail. Myself, so it's easy to just pop it right back in the mail. I do see them trying to mess with that. Obviously, the voter ID situation. We're going to be seeing more of those kinds of shenanigans ahead of the midterms because they are legitimately worried about this. That's just the way it is. I still think, though, that the voters are going to come out. It's interesting when I talk to people, because you guys know I have clients. I have clients. I have a hairdresser. I have a dentist. I talk to people, right? And the Democrats seem to be pretty annoyed with the Democratic Party too, and the Republicans seem to be pretty annoyed with the Republican Party. So we're sort of begging now for some change and for some change in the way these political parties operate. Because I don't feel that either side is really genuinely happy with what's happening. That would be just my observation on this one. Okay. So how does that affect you? Well, like I said, don't be driven nutty by it. But there are going to be some things to look out for. So obviously, like I said, in the anything but Epstein news operation, um, this fairly recent, I say air quotes leak, where they were trying to test the idea of like, what if we gave Maxwell a pardon and we said that we had, hauled her in front of Congress and got her to say that nobody important was in those files. First of all, they did kind of test it. I think I've said this before, but I really do think a lot of these leaks that hit the news media are actually their way of testing the market. Like if we leak this and everyone freaks out at the thought that it's going to happen, then obviously we can't try that approach. Let's try leaking a more mild version of it. Do I think they're going to give Maxwell a full pardon? I don't really see a full pardon. I do see they might commute her sentence down to like where she either has almost none left or she has none left. I also do see, I hate to say it, I do see the same thing for Diddy. So this is how the guides showed it to me. I'm just gonna tell you. You guys can tell me if this makes sense. I feel like we may see these pardons or commuting of sentences just before um, Trump like leaves office, whether that's in a year or whether that's sooner, and then that way that Vance doesn't have that on his hands. Like, okay, he pardons all these people, and then he gets out, gets sick and leaves office, and Vance becomes president. Oh well, Vance can say, I didn't do it. I didn't. That was Trump's thing. I don't really know these people. Who? Right? That kind of thing. That's what I see happening. And I do feel like they're plotting that now. Like, how can we work this so that we don't get that stain on our hands? And there's some legitimate concern about it, but I do feel like we may see some commuting of sentences. And I'm sorry, but I do feel like Diddy is going to be a part of that too. That same conversation. He's already been talking about it on the news. So Miller, that's the guy I think. I think that Miller and Trump are in charge, and then there's another one who I don't know who it is. Okay, but the other thing I wanted to talk about was this kind of new thing. He set up this new Olympic security committee. It's funny when I saw them do a big announcement, like the big signing thing, the new Olympic security thing for the Olympics coming in 2028. What I kept hearing was, this really isn't about what you think it's about. I'm hearing that it's really like, we want to make sure that no trans athletes get into the country. And we want to try and make sure that Black and brown people don't really feel welcome. So I'm just going to give you a weird example. It's not weird. I just watched the Tour de France. I love cycling, by the way. I'm just a huge fan. I'm going to say that Tadej Pogacar is going to have an easier time getting into the US for his Olympic road race competition than, let's just say, Biniam Girmay, who's from Eritrea. I'll let you guys figure out what the difference is. And also shout out to Quinn Simmons. He's an American. I know, yeah, it's hard to talk about Americans and Tour de France without cringing a little bit inside, but he is an American. And if you Google his picture, you'll know what I'm talking about. He is just about the most American looking guy you've seen. And he proposed to his girlfriend at the Olympics, at the Tour de France. And she said yes. So congratulations. I'm 100% sure he does not watch my show, but if he does, congratulations. Happy for you. Okay, so what else should you be concerned about? Well, I don't know that you'd be concerned about it. I think the Olympics are going to be fun. When I intuitively tune in, at least as of right now, it feels like the Olympics are going to be okay. It feels like other people from other countries are still going to be leery of coming here, even though that's 2028. I'm actually quite a bit more concerned about the World Cup, which is next summer, next, I think, June and July. There are some venues where I do feel like this war on LA, boy, Trump does not like Karen Bass, does she? Mayor of LA. I feel like this war on LA is still going to be going on, even though that's next summer. And he has already said, we have no trouble deploying the National Guard to make sure these events are fine. I do think that's going to keep the spectators at home. And I am concerned. There's several venues in the United States. I am concerned about the one in LA. And there's one in San Francisco. It feels like that one's okay. But I don't know. I mean, if you want to buy a ticket, you should still do it. I'm a little cautious on that one. That one doesn't feel so good. But maybe you think everything will be fine. Maybe I'm totally wrong. So the economy. Well, yes, like we talked about, the jobs report was indicating that things are going down. You don't need me to tell you that that's the case. Um, every client who's coming in for a reading is asking about their job, their career. Many of them have been laid off. Now, granted, people aren't necessarily booking things when everything's fine. They're booking things because they want to know what their next step is. Their job is gone, their business is down, they're worried, right? But there's a lot more of that now than there was a couple of years ago. And a couple of years ago, things were a little different too, right in the middle of the pandemic, right? I'm getting more concerned about that than I was before. A lot of these technologies jobs are going away. Also, I think this happened last night. Trump was like making some announcement about trying to get Intel to get rid of their president because he's from China. I do feel like the trying to interfere with a private company's leadership is not something people in business like to see. And I do feel like it's going to cause more anger and aggression. Now, said that he might have a good reason, but Intel is a private company and you can't really interfere with that. And I do feel like, again, this is trying to distract from the Epstein thing, which is not going away. People are pissed. People on both sides are really pissed because they want this information out there. They want the victims to get some kind of justice. And I'm sorry to say it, every time I ask my guys, is there going to be justice for Palestine? Is there going to be justice for these victims? And what I get is not the kind of worldly justice that will make us feel comfortable with it. I'm sorry to say that, but justice will have to come in a spiritual form on the other side, and you and I can't personally be a part of that part. So it'll never feel fair. It'll never feel like justice was really done. That's what I'm getting, and I'm sorry, but that's what I'm seeing. I wish I could say, yeah, there's going to be some big court of, whatever, and everyone's going to go to jail. I'm sorry, I just don't see that. I just don't see leadership that has done bad things going to jail. Okay, I'm not really seeing that. I'm seeing cosmic justice, but that's not something that you and I can watch on TV. Okay, that's just how things are. So what do you need to do? Well, when it gets to be too much, how do you protect your energy? Somebody asked that in the comments. Great question, by the way. Everybody has their own little techniques. I personally just try to lift my vibrational frequency so I'm not a match to that negative stuff. I really like crystals, so I have like little crystals around me. I'm not sure what this one is. I've got some little pieces of tourmaline. I light incense. These are things that make me feel better. Figure out what it is for you to raise your vibrational frequency. I know a lot of people, intuitives, will say, imagine the white light around you. If that's your thing, then do that. I personally don't like to imagine a wall because it feels like I give energy to something, and because I don't want that bad thing to enter into my wall. Now I've created a relationship with that bad thing. I'd rather just forget that bad thing exists and have that bad thing ignore me because I'm not a vibrational match to go find something else. As far as politics go, I know a lot of people are worried that we're sliding into fascism. I had a client ask the other day, are we all going to die? You guys already know the answer is yes, we're all going to die eventually, but not all at the same time. A lot of people are leaving the planet right now. A lot of animal beings are leaving the planet right now. Is that because they don't want to be a part of this awakening? It could just be that's the cycles. But I know a lot of people are people and families and friends have passed. That was their choice. They're not part of that little thing. But on the flip side, what I'm also hearing is there's a lot more awakenings happening. A lot more people are asking about speaking their spirit guides. They're pretty sure they're hearing them. They're seeing them around them. They're getting ideas. They're getting inspirations about new products that they could create, new innovations that they could create. All of that is also happening at the same time as all of this frustration and upset about what's going on in the news. And the news, like I said, which is being heavily kind of pushed one way or the other, and manipulated, and we're not entirely sure what's happening. So back to the Maxwell and the Epstein thing. Are we ever going to know all of it? I have always got that we'll never know all of it. We're never going to get the complete list. But I've also got that other countries have pieces of it too, right? I've got that Scotland Yard actually has a chunk of it, because they've been following Maxwell because she was a citizen of England. Israel has, Russia has, we've heard about that. Other countries have little bits of it too. It's not, I feel like some of this Epstein and Maxwell business is not a secret. I do feel like these conversations that she's been having with the Trump leadership behind closed doors I feel like part of those conversations is, what can we put out there that people will believe, that sounds believable, but is the way we want things said. I do see her kind of telling them, hey, you can't say that because there's too many pictures out there of that show that they were friends. You can't say they're not friends. They were friends, but let's play around with how else can we spin this. And I do see her almost directing them, like how they can do it, because she's good at that. I will say I don't like tuning into her energy. There's few people in this world whose energy I like less than hers. There is maybe one, maybe two. I don't like tuning in. I wouldn't encourage any of you guys to try and tune into that energy. It does not feel good. But is she going to get justice? I don't feel like she's going to get justice in this world in this time frame. I do see her eventually getting on a plane and going to another country, and we'll never see her again. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so what should you do? Well, like I said, you guys are worried about your jobs. I said this before. I do see that 90% of you people that have a job right now are still going to have it at the end of this. 10% unemployment means that 90% of you guys are just fine. Everybody should be looking for other streams of income. Everybody should be learning and understanding the stock market and how it works. Everyone should be working on keeping themselves healthy. Do that. The other thing I'd like to do personally, because it's fun for me, and I would encourage all of you guys to do, just for fun, ever since forever, I've always done this. I've asked my guys to kind of like take me into a future scene, so show me something fun, right? And try that. Go into kind of get yourself into a meditative state. You know how to do that. Put on some nice music, relax a little bit. Go to hemi-sync.com. I think it's hemi-sync.com, and get some kind of subliminal relaxing, something you actually like. They've got clips, I think, samples. It's not very expensive. Just grab a piece of music, get into a relaxed state, and then just ask your spirit guides to take you into a future where there's something kind of fun happening. I know everybody wants to say, show me if I'm going to get that job or not. Yeah, that's great. And they will absolutely do that. But when I want to raise my vibrational frequency, I want to see something playful. Okay. So I'm just going to give you an example of something I saw fairly recently. So I asked them to show me something fun, and I saw myself popping into a future where I was driving a Skoda. It's a car they don't sell in the US. They don't sell them here. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. Am I in Europe? Driving a Skoda in Europe? That could be a thing. It's a car that's made in, I think it's Slovakia. I've never driven one, but I thought it was kind of fun. And I'm like, the reason I tell you this is because most of mine come true, and I'm sure that's true for you, but it's a good way to build a relationship with your guides, to ask for something playful, because your guides, trust me, they love to show you fun, playful things. They'd rather show you that than world disasters. Also, they're not going to show you something, like your partner dying, because that's not, first of all, that's not really helpful, and it would most likely just scare you. But they might show you guys at Disneyland, having a great time and not worried about the cost, which if you're thinking you want to go to Disneyland, save now, because it's a freaking fortune. You can put in the comments how much I'm talking about, but however much you think it is, if you've ever been to Disneyland, it's definitely more. It's definitely more. So at the end of the day, it's going to be okay. World order is going to still exist at the end of this. It's going to take longer than we'd like, but you guys don't need to move to Canada or Europe unless you want to. You don't need to escape. It's going to be okay. Things are going to start to move, and they're going to happen. And one thing I am seeing, and I love it, is that both sides are really galvanized around this Epstein Maxwell thing, which to me feels good, because it shows me that we do care about bad things happening to young girls. And I was a little afraid for a minute that we didn't care about that. So now I'm seeing that we don't like that, and we don't like people in power taking advantage of this situation with these young people in defenseless positions. And that makes me happy, even if we're working around this one issue, which I would love to see us come together over, like world peace or feeding the homeless or feeding kids. But this is it. I'm happy to see us coming together around something. So if you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'll try to answer as many as I can. Not anything personal about, is my Uncle Bob going to get past his surgery? Yes, he's fine. It'll be okay. I don't know. If that's your Uncle Bob, it's fine. But don't put that stuff in the comments. Just put something that I'll try and answer it in a future incarnation of this video. And I'll try and be more consistent. But, every time I do put one out there, something crazy happens like an hour after. So I love you guys. If you could hit the like and subscribe button, I would really appreciate it. That means so much to me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'll see you again soon, okay? I promise. Bye, bye, bye.